Hi, good afternoon. In a 16th century text describing the life and activities of the famous Maodhóg of Ferns, which Professor Wooding mentioned earlier this morning, the author dramatically declares that the power and the rights possessed by Maodhóg are due to his vast array of relics and his wonder-working insignia. Now, of all examples of Irish hagiographical texts, I think this is perhaps one that most fully and in most detail describes the importance of relics in exerting power and control in the early Irish church and society. So as today we're standing here above traditionally believed to be the relics of St. Maodhóg himself, I just wanted to set my talk to you today within this context. In many cases, the relics used for church consecration were those distributed from Rome, which bound these churches to Rome, and also it solidified certain Roman agreements and edicts. By the 8th century, relics were essential for the consecration of any Catholic church. In 787, the Seventh Ecumenical Council of Nicaea forbade the consecration of a church without a relic, under pain of being deposed. Now, associated with this was another important legal use of relics, which was their increased use in the swearing of oaths and for cementing treaties. This custom was formalized circa 630 AD by Dagobert, king of the Franks, who declared that the presence of relics was needed for the agreement of contracts. And then the famous Holy Roman Emperor, Charlemagne, he further consolidated this legal role of relics. In the year 803, he laid down that all oaths must be sworn in a church or on relics. So similarly, in early Ireland, we see the same thing happening. Legal validity was lent to oaths sworn on saints' remains. For example, one law text states that witnesses took an oath over relics or at a saint's grave. This practice would have continued the pre-Christian custom of swearing in cemeteries. And oath-taking on relics in Ireland became the norm to the extent that the relic term min, in Old Irish, developed the secondary meaning of oath, and it's now actually the standard word for oath, mion, in modern Irish. Now, the political use of relics is well attested in the cult of relics in the church as a whole, and became increasingly integral to the interactions between the church and secular elites in Ireland from the 8th and 9th centuries onwards. Relics, as I said, would be present in the making of agreements and the swearing of oaths, and they were taken on tour to promote a particular saint, to seek intervention, and to exact tributes for the church. Relic circuits provided an opportunity for the collection of revenue and for tributes, and the extent to which this was the primary objective of these circuits is a matter of debate. The timing of some relic circuits coincided with famines or outbreaks of disease, and there may have been a genuine concern for the well-being of the population at a time of undoubted difficulty and hardship. Indeed, in the Irish collection of church canons, medieval church canons, they cited St. Augustine and they included the increase of the evils in society as one of the reasons for the circuit of relics. Additionally, the text criticizes vagrant monks who profit from the sale of relics. However, revenue collection was certainly an important facet of these relic circuits. The early Irish law texts, Coig Cunnar Fugil, Bereth Archta, and the Heptads all make reference to the earnings of a reliquary. The circuit of relics combines two of the key elements intrinsic to the success of the cult of relics: faith and authority. For the relics of a particular saint to contain any real power and longevity, lay Christians needed to believe in their intercessory power. However, the relics also needed to be an effective resource for the church and the secular elite to be adequately promoted. So a key element here to understanding the importance of relics in medieval society is that we must appreciate the role of the saint, the very active role of the saint in medieval society. Saints bridged the heavenly and earthly realms and acted as intercessors on behalf of believers. Local saints were particularly vital to this process, as they represented a particular area, and thus the clergy and the lay community could specifically identify with him or her. He was a real individual who perhaps one time lived among them and shared many common characteristics and often a common ancestry with the local people. And it was in the Middle Ages, it was this saint that symbolized the local church and community and acted as patron. The Book of the Angel expresses this relationship as a friendship between the two saints. Just throw in, I have a lot of text here, so I'll throw you in a photo. So it shows that the patron saint was intrinsic to the identity and the status of the community. As patrons of communities, saints often represented territorial interests and were symbolic owners and defenders of the land. The saints, of course, were long dead. However, the existence of their relics made them very much alive. Possession of the relics of the saints confirmed this ongoing relationship. So allegiance and association with a saint were represented physically and tangibly in the form of relics. In this way, relics became part of the official emblems and insignia of churches, and as such they were used to represent a church's identity, their position, and their status. Insignia, which means symbols or badges of office, became a specific type of relic venerated for this kind of official association. And as official emblems of a community, relics as insignia represented the saint and his church. If they were disrespected in any manner, for example, by not according the holder of the relics due respect and hospitality, this was equivalent to slighting the actual saint, and proper retribution would be wrought. So what this traditionally, and what the 16th century text, and we must bear in mind that that's written a long time after, say, the Breac Maodhog, is that the tradition says that there were 7 relics, of Maodhog, but that there's 3 really important ones, right? So there was the staff, so the bishop's staff or any cleric staff was really important. It was something that was always associated with them. So you have the staff of Jesus, or the staff of Patrick later on, Christchurch Cathedral and everything. And anyway, you have the staff in relation to Maodhog, the bell, I think it is, and the Breac Maodhog. And one of them went to each of his main foundations. And I'm not an expert on this topic at all, but apparently Ferns was the staff. And I think the staff was probably the most important one in terms of, the Breac obviously contained a lot of other relics in it, but the staff was always mentioned first. And it said that Ferns had the staff, that Rossinver, I think, if anyone can help me out here, I think had the bell, and that Drumlane had the Breac Moadhóg. So I don't know if it's there at the minute, but the local museum in Cavan actually had it on loan from the National Museum for a while, because they were saying it's their relic, so it is kind of more associated with Cavan. And it's still continuing. I know, I was kind of like, is this Ferns know about this? But it's the staff that apparently he left, so it's very egalitarian in the text. He left the staff in Ferns, he left but then we don't have any physical, it got lost somewhere along the way, or